Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for another video. No microphone today, another sort of more casual recovery chat and catch up. I like doing these sometimes. I guess it would be like what it might feel like to be a client with me, just like casually talking through a screen on Zoom, rather than like the high production sort of great audio quality kind of version of me. Today, I wanted to actually talk about something that's been coming up a lot in client sessions and that you guys have been emailing me about and commenting across social media about. And that is wanting to hold on to a little bit of your eating disorder where you want to recover, but you still kind of want to be able to manipulate your body and restrict your food to some degree. Or you want to recover, but there's certain foods that you just really don't want to try or really don't want to challenge. So that's been a very, very common thread throughout a lot of my work recently. But before we get into that, I mentioned this once, I think. We are doing a body neutrality workshop and there's only a couple of tickets left. And that is coming up this Monday, the 28th. You can see a sneak peek of one of our beautiful body neutrality workbooks here. We do 2 1-hour Facebook Lives together. We are in a private Facebook group together for a week where I'm answering all your questions, guiding you through all the activities, and just generally getting to know each other and having a fabulous week together. So if you'd like to come, check out the link below to grab your tickets. Like I said, there's a couple left. They may be gone by the time I put this up. So apologies if that happens. Not the first time I would have done that. Today, I wanted to talk about the concept or the desire to hold on to a little bit of your eating disorder and whether or not that's doable, advisable, and what that might actually mean about where you are in your recovery. So it's a very, very common thing when I'm working with clients or when I'm chatting to somebody about where they're at in recovery, that they kind of get stuck on the short-sighted sense of, what they need to challenge or what they need to do next. And we might be talking about like a specific challenge that they need to do, a specific food they need to put into their intake, a specific behavior that they might need to urge surf or try some help seeking around. And we'll get into a conversation about like how necessary that is. Do I really need to do that? A really common one is, well, I don't even like that food, or I really don't feel like I need to challenge that because it's not something I really enjoy and it's not something that's really important to me. There's a number of reasons why we need to challenge things, but the biggest, most overarching one is when you imagine yourself 10 years down the line, or you imagine yourself fully recovered or as far into recovery as you can imagine yourself going, do you imagine that you're still scared of this food? And the answer is usually no, or it might be, oh, I don't know, maybe, but would that be so bad? Well, then my answer to that is to get really specific. Let's say there's a food that we don't like and we're working through our fear foods and we're kind of sure that some of our fear foods are not even foods that we prefer. So what's the point of challenging foods that we don't even really enjoy? What's the point of challenging foods that we're not going to get the most out of as far as preference and satisfaction, not just hunger satisfaction, but taste satisfaction? Well, here's a story that I tell when that kind of resistance comes up. When I was about 7, we were living in Melbourne and I got into this pattern, even though I shouldn't have been left alone in a kitchen ever, because every time I was alone in a kitchen, I would break at least 5 items. Highly clumsy child, never grew out of that, still incredibly clumsy, still ushered out of some kitchens sometimes because that's how clumsy I am. I got into this habit at 7 where I would insist on making my mum breakfast in bed every Saturday. Sounds nice, right? She worked full time. In theory, what a lovely gesture. What she would get for breakfast was freezing cold toast with hardly any butter on it and about an inch of Vegemite. Now, what you need to understand about Vegemite is that you're not meant to slather it on. You're not meant to have layers of it. You're meant to have barely a suggestion of Vegemite on anything, toast, crackers, whatever it is. I would also make tea that was more sugar than anything else. I'm not kidding. I think I would put in excess of 10 sugars in there because it's 7. What's better than 1 sugar? 10 or more. It would be stone cold. It would be weak. It was a nightmare. It was not a happy way to wake up on a Saturday morning, I'm sure. But I would take it up to her and sit on the bed, and she'd open her eyes, and I'd present her with this just chef's kiss little display and spread. And my mother would eat every bite and drink every sip of that tea. And why do you think she did it? Not because it was delicious, not because it was her favorite, not because it was worth it, but because it was an opportunity for us to connect. It was obviously me showing that I cared for her and loved her, and it was her way of showing that she cared for me and loved me too, and that it was more about the conversation that we were having about what we were going to do that weekend or how my week at school had been. So when I have clients who are telling me that they're only really going to challenge things from preference, and what's the point of challenging anything they don't like or aren't sure that they like, or even foods they are pretty much 100% confident they dislike, my answer is, if someone you love at some point, a partner, a child, a friend, were to invite you over for dinner and make you something horrendous because maybe they can't cook, or maybe it's your least favorite dish and they're a great cook but you just hate the food, would you prefer your response to be, thank you so much, being able to be present with them, being able to connect with them, and to just not care that much about whether or not you like the food? I know what my answer to that was and is now that I'm recovered. I often eat food I don't like. I eat it out of convenience. I eat it out of necessity. Another example, let's say that you're on a road trip and your mate says to you, oh, don't worry about it. Like, I'll bring the snacks, I'll bring the food. And then they don't, they forget. And you're on a long road trip and the only fast food that you keep passing is like your least favorite fast food, right? The one that you really don't prefer, that you really like would put at the bottom of your list. But you know that you're not going to pass any other opportunities for food for some time, and you're getting hungry, and you know you want to be able to be plugged in and present and enjoy this road trip and enjoy this time with your friends and sing at the top of your lungs to all the terrible music that you loved growing up. Mandy Moore crush, anybody? What? And so what do? You stop and you get the food that you don't like that much and you eat it and you move on and you live your life. Alternatively, it's, I never challenged that. That terrifies me. Now that's all I can think about. Oh no, now I'm hungry. When am I going to get the opportunity to eat food that I'm okay with and I prefer? I'm not really present with these people. I'm so uncomfortable. This is triggering really, unresolved eating disorder stuff. Which one would you prefer, right? Food does not need to be worth it to make it possible for you to eat it. Your relationship with food in recovery and as a result of recovery is for it to be completely unconditional. When we hear that, I think that we interpret that as that I will love everything and that I will have this perfect, in sync relationship with all my cues and all my fullness and all my hunger, and nothing will ever go wrong, and I can just eat all the food that I love at all times. That is not how a normal relationship with food functions. It's kind of like people assume that intuitive eating is going to mean that you have this perfect relationship with food and you only give yourself exactly what you feel like and it's like magical and aligned with the stars. No. Again, sometimes you're just eating for convenience. Sometimes you're just eating because, somebody has made you a cake, but it's your least favorite kind of cake, but it's your birthday and someone who you love made it for you and put it in front of you. What are you going to do? Push it away and be like, I don't like it. If you're recovered, hopefully you would have been able to get to the point where you can see it for what it is, but see it as the bigger picture of this is someone showing me that they love me. With intuitive eating, let's say, for instance, that you feel like steak. That's what I'm having for dinner tonight, and you best believe I feel like it. But let's say that you feel like steak, but it's late in the day, you're tired, and you know what you've got in the fridge is salmon, and that's going to go off in the next couple of days. And look, it's there, it's easy. It's not exactly what you feel like, but it's the convenient thing. And also it's better than chucking it out because it's there ready to go. Not perfect, not aligned with the universe, but it is without conditions. So intuitive eating is great, but I think unconditional eating is a really great way to put it as well. So in those ways, it's really important for us to check in. Are we only working through the foods or only getting rid of the behaviors that we really, want to work on? Or are we doing the full scale and the full gamut of our eating disorder? Are we working through all of it? Are we neutralizing all of it? Are we making our relationship with these things truly unconditional? It's a similar thing with our beliefs about bodies. It is so important, and it makes me very sad that treatment and the way that people are trained, like, myself as a coach, I know that it's part of my job to help people get through the stage where they're unpacking their fat phobia and introducing them to resources and to examples much more, qualified than I am to speak about that subject. It's my job to help them, face those beliefs head on and those fears head on. That unfortunately hasn't always been the case in treatment settings and still isn't in some ways, but it is getting better because people want to hold on to some of these beliefs that they should and can or will one day be able to return to manipulating their body. Well, if we've helped people to recover to the extent that they deserve, those preoccupations shouldn't be hanging around to that extent anymore. Those beliefs about our worth being so inherently tied to that desire and that requirement almost that we believe that we need to fulfill, hopefully you've had the opportunity to break away from that. And I think that's what it comes back to. Do you imagine yourself in whatever span of time still limiting your life and restricting yourself and punishing yourself to whatever extent after going through this process? And if the answer is no, then there's a gap that needs to be closed, right? If you are ever confused about why am I doing this? What is the point? Do a bit of that time jump and ask yourself, do I imagine ideally that I would still be thinking this way, behaving this way, or wanting to act on this in that span of time? If the answer is no, then at some point you've got to close the gap. Nothing changes if nothing changes. You're not going to suddenly wake up without those desires, without those cognitions, without those behaviors, without those beliefs, unless some action is taken to get to a different outcome one day. And that day is today. Start on Monday mentality is not good for recovery because there's a lot of Mondays in your future. So there's a lot of opportunities to push that off until sometime in the future. But the answer ultimately is no. We can't recover in the way that I hope people know they can recover, and still hold on to these limitations and these conditions and restrictions. I see that quite often when people will say, I recovered and, I am still plagued by obsession over my body, or I am still plagued by obsession over exercise. And I think that's where the treatment sphere has let so many people down, in that they have given them such a crappy definition of what the end of this process is supposed to be, which is weight restoration. Okay, you're done, off you go. Or you met a BMI, sick, out you go, you're done now. No, there are so many layers to what needs to be rewired in terms of what needs to be challenged. And it goes so far beyond food and body and so into sense of self, self-image, self-worth, beliefs about bodies, fat phobia, healthy boundaries, being able to advocate for ourselves, being able to help seek, use our support system. It's so multifaceted, it's crazy. But I think that a lot of people have been sold just a really poor version of what is possible. And so the end result must feel so disappointing. But I just want to say to those people, please keep pushing to the extent that you can. I obviously personally believe in full recovery. I personally identify with that definition of full recovery. I'm not here to say everyone must fully recover or to say that everybody will, but as far as you can push it, please do. And if part of the reason why you didn't keep pushing is because you were told there was no destination beyond that definition you were given of BMI, certain weight, hitting a certain point, please know that there are alternative treatments, philosophies, approaches, which come from people with lived experience. That is what is changing so enormously in this space. I know here in Australia, there is such an increasing appreciation for how much lived experience has revolutionized this space. And that's what's changing. What is possible is what we're reporting, what we're saying is possible. And now there's more and more of us out in the field passing that on. So I know that this was a bit rambly, but I did say it was going to be a bit more casual and rambly and catch up. But I hope that that was helpful. Let me know, of course, in the comments below. Come and check out the podcast. A new episode went up this week and will be up next week. I am going to be somewhere completely different in a little over a week. And by that, I mean in another country in a little over a week. But I'll be sharing that more and more with you guys and taking you with me. I can't keep talking about it or I'm going to cry because it's probably the happiest I've been in about 3 years. But let's not do that. It's Friday afternoon. I've got steak to eat and movies to watch, and it's happy days. For the first time in a long time, it's happy days. I will see you guys next week. Much love. Take care. Bye.